Coming to you from the mountains and the plains. The only conservative voices brave enough to push back. This is the Conservative Daily Podcast with Joe Otto.
That's what the Second Amendment was designed to do. If you're going to do something to nullify or take away my rights under the Constitution, come get it.
Max McGuire.
When you look at politicians on the left, they need to convince people that they are victims.
A resistance to the resistance. And now your hosts, Joe Otto and Max McGuire.
And welcome back to another edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. As always, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And today, Joe, we're going to be talking about the protest that's going to be happening in Colorado. Today, we're going to be talking about the protest that happened yesterday in Michigan and how the mainstream media has tried to blow it out of proportions. As we were starting to get on, you mentioned that you got a call from one media outlet trying to hype this up as if today's Colorado protest is going to be some violent protest. So we can talk a bit about that. But it's pretty remarkable to see how more and more Americans start rising up to fight for their rights, which that's what this is. It's fighting for your right to freedom of movement, your freedom to basically provide for your family. As more and more people start fighting for their rights, we're seeing the mainstream media smear them. We're seeing politicians smear them, and it's really disgusting what's going on.
Yeah, so today is going to be a pretty amazing day. I'm pretty excited about it. It's going to be our guess is going to be much bigger, more impactful than we've had in the past. We've had thousands of people that have come out for the one we had on the 19th, and we had, 500-600 people that showed up at the one, last week. But this one means something. This one is the day that we declare independence, right? And, I think that the people in Michigan are trying to be heard, and they couldn't be heard. And the people in Colorado are saying, hey, I don't, Michigan, we're proud of the things that they did up there. You could say, oh yeah, they stormed it with weapons. No, they didn't.
Yeah, no, they didn't.
That's not what happened. So I had a friend that was literally there, and he goes, Joe, that is not what happened. The media lied. So he sent me a couple videos, and so I'm going to post those videos later. But it never happened. I mean, we're dealing with a media that is perpetually lying to the American people about everything. They spin everything. There is no truth in what the mainstream media is actually saying. None. And they take the worst picture they possibly can and say, these people see they're nuts. They're not nuts. They're pissed. Yeah. Their families are basically been decimated by this, not by the disease. I mean, some of the people that are there. So my friend Mark lost his grandfather due to COVID, but he was in hospice. So he's actually in hospice. He only had a couple weeks to live. And COVID just came through the nursing home like wildfire. And it killed, I think, 13 people. All the people that died in the hospice center were declared to have died from COVID. Yeah. And he goes, Joe, look, they could have caught a common cold and it would have killed them.
Yeah.
And so we're having these conversations with different groups about what happened in Michigan and what we're going to be doing here in Colorado. Sorry, somebody just sent me a text message. I've been getting quite a few fan mails, Max.
Yeah. Real fan mails or not real fan mails?
Well, I mean, I get the fan mail, but these are special fan mails. These are the I'm going to meet you at the steps, and we're going to take you out. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Those fan mails. I was like, well, you got to be around a lot of people. You better be wearing a mask and a bubble suit. Yeah. So, and it's really funny that they got my phone number and my email address.
Tracy just commented on Facebook that there is a protest tomorrow in the 3:00 hour in Phoenix. And they're doing a flyover, so that should be exciting. More and more, you're seeing this around the country. More and more states and people in cities are protesting this. I mean, what's really disgusting, we'll play a couple cuts from this morning, how MSNBC tried to describe the protest in Michigan. Let's just go to that. Let's real quick. Let's skip and we'll go to cut 3.
Well, I mean, carrying AR-15s into state capitals.
Oh my gosh.
Protesting provisions that the White House themselves, White House medical professionals themselves said were necessary to save lives.
So I did that because you can hear Mika Brzezinski in the back as he says, protesting at the Capitol with AR-15s, and you hear her in the back saying, "Oh my gosh," right? They're making these people out to be terrorists, and the important caveat that they never really get to, they mention it briefly in that MSNBC kind of piece, is that the protesters in Michigan broke no laws. They did not violate any laws with what they were doing. You're allowed to open carry in Michigan as long as it's not for some illegal purpose. So as people walked into the Capitol building, the mainstream media made it out to be like they stormed the Capitol building. No, you're allowed to walk into the Capitol building, open carrying a firearm. It's legal in Michigan now, where the protesters are stopped, where they were stopped from getting up to the gallery, getting into the actual chambers. But the important thing, and the way that MSNBC covered it, was as if like they were there to go after the legislators. Yesterday in Michigan, the state assembly actually voted to cancel the Governor Whitmer's executive order. So the majority in the state legislature actually was supportive of what the protesters were saying. So the MSNBC and other outlets tried to make this out like the protesters were there to hurt the legislature and they had to stop them from getting in, when in reality, what the legislature did yesterday was actually supportive of their pleas, which was to cancel, to not renew Governor Whitmer's emergency order, so that she can't keep using her executive order to do these crazy things. And when you hear someone like MSNBC, like Joe Scarborough, say that why are these people protesting? Michigan was only doing what the president told them to. That's complete hogwash. The president of the United States never told Michigan to ban people from buying American flags. Never told Michigan to ban people from buying home improvement items. I mean, these people were locked in their home, and the governor said it's too dangerous for you to go out and buy carpeting, to buy flooring, to redo your house. It was just completely beyond the pale. And to say you can't buy American flags, say you can't buy car seats for your newborn children, it was crazy what Michigan was doing. But the mainstream media spins it to try and make it out like Michigan was only following Trump's orders.
Well, and it seems to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Look, the media has never been, not in the last 4 or 5 decades, has not been nice to people who question the quote unquote authority of government. It's just never been nice to them.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go all the way back to Rosa Parks. We can go back to Martin Luther King, right? And by the way, the government hasn't done a great job of being transparent at all. I mean, if we just look at history, we look at Flynn, just recent history.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad actors inside of our government. A lot. There's a lot of cancer inside of our government.
Yeah,
bad people surround themselves with bad people. And so what we're seeing is the people are finally saying, you know what, I'm not your sharecropper. This is my country. And so the media is basically using this hyperbole of, and I told you before, you know, the government gets barked orders by the politicians. The politicians get barked orders by the people above them. And then the people in the government bark orders at the media and say, look, you know, maybe we'll have some, you know, tit for tat. We'll take care of you. I need you to spin it this way. That is truly what is happening. And anyone that has actually gone to high school or college or been involved in any sort of community and dealt with those, we'll call them Karens, right?
Mm-hmm.
knows that
I want to speak to the manager of those people.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we act surprised that the media lies, but yet people actually believe it. But they, one side of their mouth, they're saying, I don't believe the media. The media is full of it. We put out a survey. 95% of the people said, I don't trust the media. But then they believe the media. They actually repeat stuff the media says, right? And they, even when they're there with their own eyes, seeing what's going on, they create this narrative because we have a society that is, they are hell-bent on dividing us. You have people in positions of power that literally buy actors, put people in positions where they make others look bad, right? Just to discredit an entire environment. And then we're surprised. We're surprised because we think that the media is actually telling the truth. They never tell the truth. They never tell the truth.
Yeah.
They don't. Their truthometer is, they didn't wake up one day and said, I have a conscience. They woke up one day and said, every day, and they said, look, we need more drama. it's not a mistake that if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. So talk to us a bit about that. As we were preparing to come on, you mentioned that you got a text from a reporter. You don't have to mention where the reporter works, or you can if you want. But the reporter was asking you whether the people who are going to be protesting today in Colorado are going to be, what they say, quote, bringing guns like last time.
Yeah. Will there be weapons like last time? So there was one person that did get arrested for open carrying at the last
he had a license to carry a firearm concealed.
But in the city and county
yeah.
of Denver, there's no open carry, right? And that's it. I'm going to tell you, I support the Second Amendment 150,000%, right? Without exception, I support the Second Amendment, right? And it's not if or but or when. And I don't think that city ordinances or things that limit people's ability to protect themselves, whether it be open carry or not, I don't think that that's constitutional. Now, it's been years because our system does not allow for things to happen, justice to be served quickly. But it's not the time or the place. Right now, we have a problem. The problem is that they have a constitutional integrity issue. They are violating the Constitution by not giving us the ability to choose what our risk level is. You can tell us what the dangers are. Like, we know that if you smoke cigarettes, you're going to get cancer and die, right? You're going to cut years off your life. We know that to be a fact, but people still do it, right? The same thing can be said for this. All right, so it's more deadly than the flu virus. Here are the precautions you should take. End stop. But in this case, this guy's trying to make it out as if a bunch of bandits just showed up with guns and it was like the Wild West. That's not what happened.
Are people going to be bringing weapons like last time? And I mean, you can see through that the narrative that they want to. In the questions they ask you can tell the piece that they plan to write. Right? They plan to bring up the Michigan protests. They plan to bring up the fact that someone was arrested last time at the Colorado rally. They plan to bring all of that up, and the reason they're asking you is because they want to get you to comment on that, right? They want to try and put that on your put that on you.
So I'm going to answer some of these questions right now, right? So the first question is, will there be weapons like last time? So I'm going to tell everyone right now, I've gotten more than a few death threats. I will be wearing a weapon. I will have a weapon on me, and there will be people around me that have weapons. Now, we're not going to open carry those weapons. We're going to act like normal human beings, right? That are responsible. But I'd be foolish to say that no one's going to be there with a gun because you have a right to carry with a concealed carry. Do I think that'll lead to issues? Do I think people will last time carried guns? I think that nobody knew who carried a gun except for the person that got arrested, because everyone else, followed the rule of law today. Now, whether or not that's unconstitutional or not, let's set that aside. But the rule of law today is you cannot open carry, right?
Yeah.
And nobody there is being encouraged to break the law while we're trying to get the government to stop breaking the law, right? I mean, they're violating our rights. They're breaking the law. It'd be stupid to break laws while we're trying to get them to stop breaking the law. Which, by the way, we're opening. In Colorado, we're opening. I've gotten probably 200 businesses that said we're opening. Mm-hmm. Joe, I want to just thank you for talking courageously and for helping us, lead us to kind of step out. But I have hundreds of businesses that says I'm opening. I'm opening my business tomorrow.
Well, so that's the weird thing in Colorado. In Colorado, you actually had the state give the thumbs up for certain businesses to reopen, but then you had like these county health officials overruling the state and saying, no, we're not quite ready yet. We think we should wait a couple more days. And that's something that's kind of been laid bare throughout this whole process. It's one thing to see Governor Whitmore or Governor Polis in Colorado, to see them kind of abusing their power like this. But when you have county health officials, which I don't even know if they are elected, if they are actually elected on the ballot, most of the time they run unopposed, right? When I lived in Colorado, no one was running to be, the sheriff, for example, ran unopposed. The coroner would run unopposed. A lot of these county positions, they run unopposed, and you couldn't pick them out of a lineup if you saw them with a bunch of people. And this idea that they've now been empowered and they're the deciders. They're getting to decide whether or not businesses reopen, whether people go out of business, whether people lose their home, lose their commercial properties and whatnot. It's crazy, right? It's crazy because we talk about we need to hold people accountable, but in many of these situations, we don't even know who the people are who are making these decisions.
Right. Well,
We
and
don't
they're
even know who they
faceless,
are.
right? So you can't hold them accountable. And that's the whole thing. They act with impunity because they have immunity. They don't have a face. They're just barking orders at us. Hey, here's your piece of paper. That's what you have to do. Get back in your house. Oh, we're going to fine you $3,000 if you don't wear a mask. Man, I wish you would. I'm
Yeah.
not paying your $3,000. Right? The government always goes to punitive of how I can take money from the people. How can I punish you? How can I punish you? How can I force you to do what we want you to do? Right? That's not America. That's China. That's not America. That's Russia.
Yeah.
This is America. We get the freedom to choose. You don't get to bark orders at us. And by the way, Max, why the hell is a marijuana dispensary and a liquor store essential, but a dental office isn't?
Yeah.
Please tell me that. Tell me why a doctor can't see their patients, but you can go buy a beer. Oh,
yeah.
God forbid. And hey, you'd say, oh, well, you have withdrawals and people have anxiety and they need those things. If you have a toothache and you have an infection in your tooth and you can't get the dentist to see you because he's not allowed to work, that's not important. The pain of one individual is better. We're picking winners and losers again.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
And the crazy thing is you can go to Target to buy children's clothes, but the children's clothing boutiques, the local mom and pop businesses, they're not allowed to open. So how is it okay to let these Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, the big box stores continue to sell, but it's too dangerous for people to go into their mom and pop boutique or whatnot to buy clothing? Why is it okay for I mean, you can go down the list, and why is it okay for people to go to Walmart, but it's not okay for them to go to church? None of it makes sense. And you see, we've talked about this time and time again. It's this idea of picking winners and losers. And when you have Democrats in power, we see this across the country. It's the Republican states that are the ones reopening, that are ones saying that, hey, we went too far with this. And even some of the states that didn't have lockdowns, like what was it, South Dakota? Didn't have lockdowns.
And look what's happening there. Look what's happening there.
The problem is when you have Democrats in power, and I don't know whether the health officials in Denver are Democrats, though I would imagine that they probably are, even if they do run on a non-political line. The problem with that is we see across the country, they always seem, and they claim that this is not intentional, they always seem to err on the side of violating people's rights, of being 100%. More restrictive. And it's harder and it's getting harder and harder to justify. I mean, in California, you had the governor shut down beaches, saying you're not allowed to go to beaches, and they were having a heat wave. So the government's solution was, instead of going to the beach in the open air where we know the sunlight helps kill the virus, right? The California state government and the local governments, their idea was, instead of going to the beach to cool down, to go to these government-approved cooling centers indoors where they have air conditioning. So instead of letting people go outside where we know the sun will kill the virus, the solution from the government was, nope, you can't have that. That's too much freedom. Come to these government-approved cooling centers and get packed in like sardines, and that's the solution. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
They don't want people to taste freedom. They don't want them to realize that you're being oppressed. And you could say whatever you want. We're not being oppressed. They're looking out for our best interest. Man, kiss my butt. They're not looking out for anybody's best interest. When you let Targets open and Walmart's open and Starbucks can open, no problem, right? And you tell other businesses you have to shut down.
Yeah.
You have to shut down. When you make laws that say, hey, you cannot sell alcohol outside of a restaurant, right? But, oh, you know what? So we can feed you just crumbs. Let me give you crumbs. We'll let you do alcohol to go now. You can actually make someone a margarita, and they can walk out with it in a sippy cup and break every law for having an open container from the restaurant to their house. But no, let's not have anything that makes any sort of common sense.
In California yesterday, the Governor Newsom, made this big announcement that says, for the next 60 days, we're going to allow people to get married again, but they have to do so over video conferencing. It blows your mind that they've stopped people from getting married. They're allowed to live together, right? These people are allowed to live together, but they can't come down to the courthouse to get married. And I mean, that's apparently not a constitutional violation. But now it's saying you can get married, but you have to do so over video conferencing apps. And people look at that and say, "Oh wow, that's so reasonable. Thank goodness for the governor.
So reasonable.
That's so reasonable for him to understand."
What the hell is wrong with people? So I asked a young man yesterday, I go, what do you think that is going to happen to you if you get coronavirus? I said, you actually think you're going to die? He goes, yeah, I do. I have asthma. And I went, wait a minute, wait, you have asthma, you think you're going to die? Yeah, my lungs are in really bad shape. Look, I've had asthma since I was 8, right? I mean, and it's gotten progressively better because I've done some other stuff, some holistic stuff, and I've taken some things that have made it better. But they're literally scaring these young people. These young, remember Normandy. I want to go back to it. Normandy, 18-year-olds jumped out of boats, right? Stormed a beach at 18 years old, right? Had the courage to do that. I don't think that 90% of the youth today, and I say 90% because the 10% is actually what will save this country. I don't think 90% of this country, this youth coming up, man, I don't think they have a clue. I don't even think they know what courage is. There's never faced adversity. They've been given free. Hey, here's your star. Here's your trophy. Everyone's a winner, right? Everyone's the same. Everyone's not the same, right?
Yeah.
And courage, by the way, is as infectious as fear, and they're instilling fear in our children. Fear. It absolutely drives me crazy that we're even having to deal with it. I haven't even gotten to the second question, Max. that the reporter gave me.
Oh yeah. What's the second question?
Second question: are people being urged to stay in their car? No, they're not. Actually, I'm urging them to get out of their car and come inside, or come outside, and join. And by the way, bring frisbees, bring footballs. But the other side is, should everyone wear a mask? I think that if you want to wear a mask, it's a free country. Wear a mask.
Wear a mask.
I think if you want to socially distance, I think you should socially distance. I think that if you want to go to the liquor store and buy liquor and make your liver go bad and it kills you, that's your choice. If you want to smoke and take years off your life, I think you should be able to do that. I'm sorry, I do. Now, drugs are a different issue because I think that I have my I think that it slows down your ability to be productive in society and to have some success.
We don't need to squirrel down there.
Right.
It all comes down to personal responsibility, personal accountability. Now, likewise, if you do something that causes harm to yourself, it's not the rest of society's job to fix you, right? That's the other side of that coin.
But if they don't fix you, it's their fault. It's your fault. It's your fault if you don't fix me, right?
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I mean, they're very loaded questions. I mean, how could someone possibly protest a stay-at-home order by hiding in their car? I mean, the very act of hiding in your car, if this is about your constitutional rights, if this is about your right to freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, right? If that's what this is about, then the act of hiding in your car just gives legitimacy to the order that you're complaining about. Obviously, everyone needs to do so safely. I hope people aren't going to be swapping spit with complete strangers, right? There's things that we can avoid to make sure that we mitigate any spread of the virus. But this idea that, you're allowed to protest, but you have to follow all of the rules that you're protesting against. No, the whole point of the protest is that the rules and regulations are on their face ridiculous, right? And I mean, you see stores like Costco now are requiring everyone to wear a mask. Listen, Costco is a wholesaler. That's a membership club. They can set the terms of your membership. If you don't like it, then you don't go to Costco, right? But when it comes to actual state and local governments, right, the people's representatives, it's a much different story. Here in Texas, we had judges. The county judges actually do a lot of the governing here in Texas. We had county judges threatening to fine people if they don't wear a mask in public. I mean, we've talked about this on other episodes of the podcast. The governor, thank God, he swept in and he said, no, that's not going to happen. My rule overrules anything you have to say, and you will not fine people for wearing a mask in public. So that's kind of the difference. As we reopen, we're going to see businesses decide what they're comfortable with. And that's what we're ultimately talking about. We're talking about letting businesses make the choices. We're talking about letting them reopen, not forcing them to stay closed and having this picking and choosing of winners and losers. Like we talked about yesterday, California says that movie theaters aren't going to open for months, and Texas is letting them open at 1/4 capacity. Right? There's no actual like steps to follow. You're seeing
because
that these people are just making it up.
Because they don't tell the truth. Let's just call it what it is. The government lies. They don't get anything right, Max. They don't get anything right. I've never seen someone say the government is so good at taking care of the things that they take care of. I mean, it's the wait when you go to get your driver's license on a state level, it's so fast and so efficient. And oh my gosh, they do such a great job at maintaining roads. Oh, they do. It's terrific. There's no potholes. And I know that I'm probably rabbit holing myself down areas like, wow, we don't have. They just don't do anything well. The government does not do anything well. They definitely don't do anything where they show any financial discipline because they're too busy handing out money to their friends and family. Right?
Here's something from Governor Phil Murphy of New Jersey. He put this out yesterday, and he said he's agreed to reopen some parks and some golf courses. Again, they're treating this like, oh, so reasonable. Never should have been closed to begin with. But here's what Murphy tweeted out yesterday. This upcoming weekend will be a crucial test. We are placing tremendous trust in you to keep up with your social distancing. But if we see this weekend what we saw that first weekend in April, I will not hesitate to reverse course and close our parks again. I mean, that's what we're seeing across the country when it comes to these Democrat governors. And again, I say mostly Democrat governors because the Republicans, whether you're talking about Florida, Georgia, Texas, they're erring on the side of respecting people's liberties and apologizing for how crazy things got. But we're seeing from people like Murphy that they're being praised as being so reasonable for opening up, but it's a carrot and a stick approach. Like, you can go to the park, but if I don't like what I'm seeing, I'm gonna reverse course so fast your head's gonna spin. That's what they're doing. It's crazy.
We need a mommy. We need a daddy. I mean, it's even more crazy than that, right? It's just more. It's crazy. The whole thing's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I can't even begin to understand the lack of common sense.
Well, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to keep talking about that. We'll see if Joe has any other questions that he's gotten from loaded questions he's gotten from reporters. So don't go away. We'll be right back.
Ronald Reagan famously said that our freedoms are never more than a generation away from extinction. Conservative Daily exists to make sure that never happens. With our community of 700,000 members, we fight every day to hold Congress's feet to the fire and stop them from surrendering our rights and freedoms. The fight to take this country back is not over. Please join our movement right now by going to conservative-daily.com and clicking the subscribe button to sign up for our free call to action newsletters. We have a chance to save this country, but only if we all work together. Again, this is conservative-daily.com, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button at the top.
We're back. We are talking about the graciousness that we're seeing, and I use that sarcastically, the graciousness of Democrat governors, Democrat mayors, health officials, county level officials, how gracious they've been to let us go back to our lives, but how they've attached the strings and are threatening to pull us right back if they see us getting out of line. Joe, we've talked about how reporters are sending you kind of loaded questions, asking you if people are going to bring guns to the protest in Colorado, if you're going to encourage them to leave their cars, as if it makes sense to protest against an order and obey it at the same time. Have you gotten any other loaded questions? I know that we talked that the Washington Post wanted to talk to you, and I gave you a pretty simple response.
Please don't. Yeah.
Say no, we're not going to talk to you, Washington Post. We're only gonna do interviews with real journalists.
Yeah. That went over really well. That went over like a drop in a rock. So
what other questions have you been getting?
So this was the most brilliant question ever. Right? Ready?
Mm-hmm.
How many protesters are going to be there?
Yeah. As if you know.
But I don't. I mean, just the lack of common sense with some of these questions. How many protesters? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I hope that 100,000 people show up. I hope that it's so packed there that people freak out and go, oh my gosh. And then 3 days later, they're like, wow, we didn't have a spike. They're still lying to us.
Yeah.
I wonder this is really all about. If you don't think there's an underlying reason they're doing this, man, you're not paying attention, right? You're just not paying attention.
Yeah.
So here's another one. Are there going to be any loudspeakers at the rally? loudspeakers. Like,
I think there might be speakers who speak loudly.
I don't know.
So what they're trying to get you at is, from my opinion, they're asking you questions that would basically cross you into a territory where you would need a permit. Right. Where they ask you how many people are coming. If you were to have too many people there, that could allow the government to shut you down for operating a large gathering without a permit. If you were to bring loudspeakers and you were to use electricity, that would give the government an opening saying, hey, you didn't have a permit to use amplified audio. We're going to shut you down. So that's, to me, that's the kind of questions they're asking, because the only reason you'd have an answer to that is if you had an actual permit to have a protest, which for something like this, when the government's saying you have no right to go outside and publicly assemble at all, the argument that you should have had a permit is kind of moot at that point, right? But that's what it looks like to me when they're asking you those questions, is they're trying to trip you up to see if you will admit to doing things that you would need a permit to do. That's my interpretation of that.
100%, but not answering the question is really easy, because I don't know how many processors are going to be there. I have no idea if there's going to be speakers there.
Yeah.
Which leads you to believe that, we did tell people to bring, footballs and frisbees and have a picnic out there. We did tell people to use common sense, that, to the extent that they are fearful or they want to create boundaries for themselves to do that. But hey, there's a couple questions that came here that came up. Eric asked, I did not conceal last time due to fear of issues. Is it allowed to conceal in a backpack with permit? If you have a concealed carry permit, it is always legal.
Yes.
It is always legal to carry your weapon.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be on. It doesn't have to be on your body. It just has to be on your person, and it is legal in Colorado to conceal off-body carry. Now it's important. There's no law about it, but it is a very good recommendation to make sure if you're going to put a gun in a bag, it is still a very good idea to have it holstered. Because if you're rummaging around the bag, the 100%. Last thing you want to do is accidentally hit the trigger and have it go off. That's how a lot of negligent discharges happen in off-body carry if they don't have it holstered. So definitely use a holster if you're going to do that, but it's completely legal.
So the next part is the next question was, where's everybody going to eat after the rally? Well, whoever's open that's a restaurant, get ready for us. Right. And we're going to have a post that says, if you're a restaurant, you're open, just post in here that you're open, and we will definitely go visit you.
Yeah. So restaurants are allowed to open starting today, or those just restaurants that are opening and they're not
restaurants that are opening. They're just opening. They're just opening. I mean, they're opening.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting, because if it's going to be interesting to see what the governor, what the county officials, what the local police do, because are they going to buckle? Are they going to back down? Who knows, right? But the biggest suggestion is to be peaceful. Don't give them an excuse to use anything against you or the movement. Don't use just be respectful, right?
There'll be bad actors there, by the way. There'll be bad.
Oh, there will. There'll be plenty of people there, but they're trying to paint the picture that everyone's Nazis, everyone's Confederates.
No, the Nazism is happening on the government side. It's not happening with the people. The people are not Nazis. Like the Jews that got put into concentration camps and killed, right? They weren't the Nazis. The Nazis were the people that were killing them.
Yeah.
Right. And what's happening with the government is oppressing the people. Right. We're not the terrorists. They're the terrorists. Right. Yeah. So I want to be really clear. I want it to be absolute peaceful, 100%. But we don't work for the government. They work for us, and they act like they can bark orders at us. And they can't, Max. Yeah. They can't. Yeah. That's not what this is about. Everyone needs to understand that you have rights. You have rights. Now, they make it expensive for you to go through the process to get your rights. And I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. When slavery was abolished, there was a lot of people that stood up, right? And it was painful for them, right? When the civil rights movement was going, and when Rosa Parks sat on the bus, when all of those things happened, there were painful consequences. Right? But it was worth it. Yeah. It was worth it. And now here we are, decades later, having a conversation about rights. This is a rights issue. And now they've made us concentrate each other. Oh, you're a xenophobe, you're racist, you're this. It's not we're not the problem. The government is the problem. They're the problem. They're the 500,000 pound gorilla that is the problem for the people. And we need to recognize that.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. So again, be peaceful, be respectful. Don't make it easier, because remember, there are going to be plenty of people there with cameras who their sole goal is to try and make the protesters out to look as bad as possible. That's their sole goal. We know that there are going to be people there trying to stir the pot, just like we saw with Tea Party rallies of old, people there to try and make everyone look like they're Nazis or they're fascists or some kind of Confederate. I guess they think there's Confederates in Colorado. Who knows? But don't make it easier on them. And that goes for around the country, right? If you're licensed to carry concealed firearm, do so legally. If you're allowed to open carry, do so legally, but do so respectfully, right? I mean,
Right.
It's one thing to, I support everyone's right to open carry, but if you're going to, like we saw it in Virginia, we saw it in Virginia where one guy brought his Barrett 50 cal to the protest. I mean, you have every right to do it, right? But he was plastered over every leftist media outlet as like, look at this guy bringing a 50 cal to a protest. So just do so respectfully, and keep in mind that that there are going to be plenty of people out there trying to make you look as bad as possible. Don't make it easy on them, right? And that includes your interactions with police officers. Are there good police officers there? Yeah. Are there bad apples who are going to be there? Yeah. Don't let them make this out to be some anti-cop protest, because that's what they would love to do, right? They would love to. They would love to make that out. I'm going to tell
you, the police officers are actually in our corner, and here's what people need to understand: they have families too that are adversely affected by this. When they put on their uniform, they cannot have a political bend. They cannot have they don't have an opinion at that point. Their job is to do the job, right? And so beyond the part where they violate someone's constitutional rights, which there have been lots of police officers down in Texas and in Michigan that have said, look, at no point am I going to arrest someone for running their business. I won't do it. As a matter of fact, an entire police department threatened to quit. Over 100 officers threatened to quit if they were being forced to go against people in their community.
Yeah.
And so there is a conscience with the police. The police are on our side. They're not on our side. They want us to thrive, right? They don't want to deal with having to go and stand at a protest, but they think that the protest is necessary. So they're rooting for us while they're standing next to us saying, hey, look, just don't be stupid, right? Don't violate a law and make me come down there and arrest you. And if that wasn't true, the first week that we had the protest, people walked up open carrying. They brought their ARs and they walked out. Police walked over to them and said, hey, listen, you can't do that. Go put it back in your car. There's an ordinance against that in the city and county of Denver, right? And the people went to their car respectfully, got stopped by State Patrol, who arrested them, and then let them go. But they tried to show patience in this and say, listen, we're behind you. They understand, 90% of them understand that they serve the people, that that the people, we have a voice. We have a right to have a voice, right? So I want to make sure that this is not going to be anti-cop. Like I'm out on the anti-cop. I'm out on the anti-police. I'm out on the civil disobedience against the police officers or thinking that they're the problem. They're not the problem, right? The problem is the government. The government barks orders at them, tells them what they have to do, and then they have to enforce those laws because they're being told to.
Yeah, and part of this is also having a unified message, right? One of the problems with big protest movements like these is when you get a lot of people there, it's not really a problem, but for the effectiveness of the movement, it can be a problem. People start bringing their own goals to these rallies, and before you know it, you're seeing a bunch of unconnected demands of people, and it just makes it look less cohesive. So the goal of this protest and the rest of the protests around the country is to reopen. That's the goal. It's to reopen. Anything else will work. We'll work on that, but the goal is to reopen.
And Carl. So somebody just asked a question saying, "Hey, is there porta potties there?" I don't know if there's porta potties there, but if you're coming,
there probably won't be, because again, that's the kind of thing where if you had a permit to do this, then you'd be required to have porta potties if you had a certain amount of people there. There probably won't be.
Where are the people parking for the Denver protest today? Everywhere. They're going to be parked everywhere. Just park where you can. But my guess is that parking will be scarce because we are, asking people to get out of their cars, right?
Yeah.
Join the rally.
Yeah. And
it's a rally.
If you're local and you have the ability to, I don't know, ride your bike, walk, or carpool, it probably would be better for the congestion wise. Again, do so safely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
If you can find a way to not take 4 cars there, it probably would be better for the congestion.
Yeah. It's just, yep. Thank you. Yeah. So, it's, Max, we're in a really delicate time in our society's history, right?
Yeah.
It's 200 years in. Most societies that like ours, experiments like ours, only lasted a couple hundred years. So we are literally at the edge of kind of this breakdown. And the reason why, by the way, societies like ours break down is because of corruption. It is because of cancers within the government. It is because of oppression. And for people not to realize that the reason why we're going through what we're going through today is because of that, just it blows my mind. History does repeat itself. We are at risk right now of losing our great republic. And the people on the left, they need to realize it too. This is not a joke. This is not but I want my kid I want him to get that gold star. No. You've got to teach them to be able to overcome adversity. Because if you don't teach them to overcome adversity, if you don't teach them that, hey, look, not everybody's in first place and not everyone's going to win. If you don't teach them that, they'll never learn it. They'll never learn it. And now we're dealing with a society of a bunch of little crybabies, right? That want free stuff and free education and want to be treated like they're entitled to everything. Well, people like me who work really hard, I'm going to stop wanting to pay for it. I'm just going to take my toys and go home.
In Michigan, the governor is now proposing giving free state tuition to all essential workers during this lockdown. So the fact that if someone worked at a grocery store, they would now be entitled to free in-state tuition at any of their colleges or universities. But the people who have been begging to work, right, begging to go back to work, again, they get nothing. It's just the winners and the losers, right?
Right.
People are begging for the opportunity to get back to work, and the government's saying no. And oh, by the way, remember those winners and losers that we picked? Not only are they going to be able to continue working, but we're also going to give them free tuition. Sorry, you're not eligible. It's so
it flies
crazy.
In the face of just common sense. But the other part is that, hey, the government, so the House said that they're not coming back to work. Does that mean they're not essential? Because if they're not essential, can we just get rid of them?
Yeah, if they're not essential, let's get rid of them.
Right? Let's get rid of them. Let's find someone else. All right, so you brought up something, Max, that I want to go back to, and that is you see that these posts where these sheriffs are running unopposed, right?
Yeah.
That you have sheriff's offices running unopposed. I want to just challenge everyone that's listening or will listen. Obviously, we are on Podbean, Podbean, and Apple, and I want to appreciate the people that have listened to us for a long time. But I want to encourage you to do something, and that is, if you see a post where there's someone's running unopposed, run against them.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen? You lose.
Yeah.
What if the only reason that they're in that position of authority is because no one had the courage to run against them?
Yeah.
Right. So if you're for freedom, if you're for protecting the people, I mean, if you truly are an unselfish person, just think about it. If you're unselfish, if you're selfish, I want you to stay the hell away from that spot, right? But if you're an unselfish person, if you serve people, if you literally put, not always, I mean, put your mask on before you help the person next to you, but if you look to help other people and you're unselfish in your desire to serve others and make sure that your surroundings are good for everyone, run for office. And when they say, well, what experience do you have? Well, I got a neighbor to my right, neighbor to my left. I've been working for the last 10, 20 years. I know what fair is. I'm for the people. I have common sense. All the basic things that you have to have, which, by the way, most people in public office today don't have.
Yeah.
Right? You have that.
Yeah. Look it up. You'd be surprised at just how many positions are on the ballot. I mean, a lot of those positions, you get to like weird, like special districts where you have someone in charge of public transportation or in charge of like the water supply. A lot of times those people run unopposed. And we see now in these types of, in like this lockdown, the people who are in charge of the public transportation special district have tremendous power because they 100%. Have the ability just to lock down public transportation in many cases. And no one even knows who these people are. So run for public office, run for town council. All across this country, we have town council members who probably won their seats probably going up against
Unopposed.
10 people. Either they're unopposed or they're going up against so many people that they only need 20% of the vote to win.
Right,
because it's split that much. So when you see that, run, make this your issue, right? Be the change that you want to see. If not you, who? If not now, when? That's our big message. Well, I know, Joe, we have to cut this a little short because you have to get down to the protest.
Yeah, I do.
Any final words?
Hey, courage. We're going to have courage when we're down there. Be patient with other people's thoughts, right? So, and beliefs. We want to make sure that we honor everyone that goes to the protest. We want to make sure that they understand that we're standing for everyone, right? We're setting all political ideologies aside, because the only ideology that should mean anything right now is this thing called the Constitution, right? And if you don't stand up today, it won't be there tomorrow for you to protect.
Yeah. No, it's have courage, fight for what's right, because a lot of people fought and died for these freedoms, and it's up to all of us to protect them and to make sure that governors and council members don't get away with this. So that's going to be it for this edition of the Conservative Daily Podcast. Remember that you can download the podcast on the Google Play Store as well as Apple Podcasts. You can do that for free. Subscribe. You can also find us on the Podbean app. Don't go to BeanPod. That is a candle company. Go to the Podbean app. You can also find us on conservative-daily.com/podcast. Please do like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you think. It really helps as we try to plan out future episodes. So again, my name is Max McGuire.
And this is Joe Otto.
And remember that the fight to take back our country is not over, but the only way we can win is if we all fight together.